Okay, guess you got it. Welcome everyone. Again, sorry for the late start. We had a little mix up in having two different Zoom links, and I don't know if Sharon's here yet. We have somebody in the other Zoom link bringing people to this meeting. So welcome. This is the Vital Communities Staff Recruitment and Retention Working Group. And there's Sharon, and it's a little larger than I thought. So in order to get in what we need to get done in the hour's time, I want to make sure I know everyone that's here and what roles you may be here in. So if we could use the chat alongside of introductions, that would be great. We will be working together over time. This is not something that fixes itself quickly. So if you use the chat, just put your name, organization or roles that you are here in, and then we can capture that and make sure that we keep track of everyone that way. And we will go ahead and get started with introductions. My name is Amy Brooks again. I am the Executive Director of the Early Care and Education Association. We are a network of childcare providers, early care and education providers from all over the greater Upper Valley region. And I will go to my next person, Elizabeth, if you could go next. Oh, she's talking. Let's go to Sarah.
Go ahead, Sarah Kobolensky.
I have multiple Sarahs.
Okay, and so then Sarah Jackson, I'll tag you afterward. I'm Sarah Kobolensky with the Couch Family Foundation, which is one of the roles that brings me to this table, and then also sitting on the steering committee of this ECE initiative with Vital Communities as part of the corporate council. And do go ahead, Sarah Jackson.
Sarah Jackson, I'm the Executive Director of Vital Communities, and we are serving as a backbone organization for this initiative of work groups that came out of the symposium, thanks to support from the Couch Family Foundation and the City of Lebanon. Very happy to be here. I will pass it to the next Sarah. If there is one, I don't have everybody up on my screen. Is there another Sarah in this call?
Yeah, Sarah's. I'm going to go just around so I keep track. I'm going to go to David next if we could, and then I can keep track of everybody across my board.
Okay, good morning. David Watts, Director of HR at Kendall at Hanover, and I will kick it to Elizabeth Crabe.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Crabe with Granite United Way, and we have an initiative that's working in childcare centers now called Work United and Getting Ahead. So I will kick it to Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Yaros. I'm the parent of two elementary age daughters. I'm finishing an associate's degree in early childhood education, currently student teaching and wrapping up that degree. And I've been working part-time in childcare centers in the area for probably 4 or 5 years.
Thanks, great. Allison, can we go next?
Allison Chisholm, I'm the Director of Workforce Development, Entrepreneurship Programs and Community Partnerships at River Valley Community College. We are interested on this on all levels, but my specific level in this group is that we do have a model for a fast track training program so that you can have credentialed childcare workers once they've been recruited. And so there we go.
Great, thanks, Allison. Michael?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Bennett with the Couch Family Foundation. So I'm here as a funder and hopefully a thought partner. I've worked in workforce issues in early childhood education for many years. So looking forward to being a part of this group.
Great, thank you, Michael. Lori Brown.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I'm Lori Brown and I'm with Mascoma Bank and I work in human resources. Previously did recruiting, now employee benefits and employee relations. And we are very interested in this as it impacts our staff.
Great. Thanks for being here. Doreen, would you go next?
Sure, I'm Doreen. I work with Vital Communities, and I'm here just backup tech support and just to help with facilitating meetings as needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Doreen. Faith?
Hi, I'm Faith Dubois. I work at Granite United Way. I'm a resource coordinator in the Work United program, and I am directly working with childcare providers with their employees and when I'm in the facility. And I'm also facilitating getting ahead in the workplace, specifically with childcare providers.
Great, thanks, Faith. Rachel?
And I joined this group because previously I'd been working as an administrator for a private primary and preschool in South Carolina for 5 years, where I did recruitment and retention.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole Leonard. I am the out of school time program director with the Hanover Parks and Recreation. We do summer camp programming, vacation camps, and after school programming.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Before we go to Kim, I'll give you a heads up, Kim, you're next. If you're just coming on, we are doing introductions, but if you could also just pop your name and your role or roles being here at this working group into the chat, that would be great. Kim, can you go ahead?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Ip, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at New Futures for Upper Valley.
Thanks, Kim. Sharon?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Harrington. I'm one of the managers with Let's Grow Kids, and I work with a team in the 5 southern counties of the state on a variety of quality improvement and capacity building efforts, which directly relates to having a qualified, prepared workforce. And so some of my work is supporting program directors and as well as some systems work. I'm also the president of the board for the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children. So I'm pretty well connected to some of the workforce development pieces there. And I serve on some local community efforts, working with some career and technical education centers on some preparation programs. So lots of different scopes of work, but really, really interested in this topic. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sharon. Carolyn, I'm not sure if we have, you can both do your intros, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. I'm Carolyn Isabel. I'm the Director of Workforce Development at Dartmouth Hitchcock.
And I'm Kristen LaFramboise, and today's my first day as the Manager of Workforce Strategy at Dartmouth Hitchcock.
Welcome, first day. Great, Jocelyn?
Hi, I'm a parent of a pre-K child in the Upper Valley and a 3rd grader. I recently moved to the area as in August, and almost was not able to move here because of concerns that I wouldn't be able to get childcare for my pre-K child, and I've been struggling to get after school aftercare for my 3rd grader, and I'm just curious to see how I can support efforts to improve childcare. So I'm kind of bouncing between some of the working groups to figure out where I can add value.
Thank you very much for coming. You are one of the loudest voices in this entire Brady Bunch group. And other parents that are willing to lend their voice via Zoom to some of these committees, it would be wonderful, because you're exactly the population we want to talk to. Thank you for coming. Sunny?
I'm Sunny McPetras, and I'm the director of the Dartmouth College Child Care Center.
Thanks, Sunny. Jill?
I'm Jill Larson, and I'm the specialized childcare coordinator at the Family Place, and I do direct work with subsidy and with the child cares.
Katie? Sometimes Katie's in 7 different meetings at the same time listening in. Katie Jenks is actually our program manager for the ECEA. And she works on many projects. One of them is recruiting and is doing a ton of interviewing right now. So she may be in an interview and listening at the same time. Rebecca?
Good morning. Rebecca Owens. I'm associate planner with the City of Lebanon's Planning and Development Department. I'm here as I have a 4.5-month-old son, and it was very hard until just before I went back to work to find childcare, and we're still missing 1 day a week for him. And so I can sympathize with many of you, especially what Jocelyn was saying. And before I had my first child, I had been following the Stay Work Play New Hampshire program. That's a state program, and heard a lot of similar themes about what impacts people living in the Upper Valley. So that this is a big factor.
Great, thank you. So I think I've got everybody. I checked everyone off. I would, Sarah Jackson, would you mind just doing your spiel about the Vital Communities role in this work?
Sure. We are serving as a backbone organization. The idea of this initiative is a collective impact model where we bring together stakeholders, and that's including business and municipal leaders, nonprofit organizations, advocacy groups, parents, and childcare providers to work together on this issue. So we have a half-time staff person who started last week, Andra Dunhauer. I don't think she was able to join this morning because of a previous commitment, but she will be supporting the work groups, and that's part of the grant that I mentioned earlier that is enabling us to do this. We'll be getting resources on our website, putting meeting notes and recordings on the website, and just helping you to do the work that you're going to be aiming to do. So very happy to see so many people here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. If you are here, hopefully you were able to participate or at least view the recordings of the symposiums, the 2 symposiums from November. If you were not, you can find them at the vitalcommunities.org website under resources, and then there's past recordings, and you can find them in there. Out of those symposiums came 3 work groups. This work group for staff recruitment and retention, a work group on advocacy, as well as a work group on program facilities and program models. These are open work groups. You can join any or all that you're able to commit to, any of your interests or any of where you may have more interest or more experience. That would be great if you can tell other people about what's happening. If they have some expertise or some interest, that would be great as well. You can go through the Vital Communities website, or you also have, if you got the invite, you were also connected to Vital Communities, and you can reach out and ask to for someone else, information for someone else. The overall goals for bringing us together in these 3 work groups, I'm trying to stay consistent with the other work groups. So the other 2 work groups had advocacy. The goal of the advocacy work group is to create an exchange of successful policies that advance the goal of the initiative in each state and engage Upper Valley businesses in bi-state advocacy. That's the advocacy group. The facilities and program models. The goal for that group is to identify and catalyze strategies to reduce operational costs, including cooperative procurement of services, tax breaks, things like that. A lot of these, like we just had the facilities and program models first meeting last week, and we were discussing how some of the things that were coming up in that meeting needed to connect to the advocacy group. So these groups may actually cross and intersect at different points where we need expertise, or may need to ask another group to take an idea or an initiative forward. This group, the staff recruitment and retention group, the goal is to identify and catalyze short and long-term strategies to increase recruitment and retention of childcare staff. And lastly, in that piece, to discuss the role of the Child Care Steering Committee, there's a group that came out of the symposium work. It was a planning group made up of some of the key members that were in the planning of the symposium, as well as we brought on some other people to kind of round out that steering committee. If you think that, you know, you really want to be at that point, at that level where you're guiding some of the work above these work groups, please let us know, because we invite voices of all kinds. We want to make sure that we're reaching every point that we need to in these groups. I'm down, if you're looking at the agenda, I'm down on number 4. And I just wanted to start by introducing the Early Care and Education Association, because we are doing work in the Upper Valley specific to your area here on recruiting and retention. Couple of really quick things to be mindful of time. We have been since the fall of 2020, we realized that we were going to need to really start to look at rebuilding the workforce. We were struggling prior to this, and then, they all went home and we couldn't get them back. So we started a program to support some of our providers in a COVID-friendly training program called the CDA, the Child Development Associate Credential. And we've been able to support and coach staff through that program, and that program has been very successful, and it continues today. Again, that's moving incumbent workers up to what would be a classroom supervisory level, which makes it easier to staff your program. Another initiative we started specifically for recruiting. Last June, we started going out and tried to get people interested in the field, to view the field. What we learned is that people were being hired very quickly. We needed that our program wasn't moving quickly enough. That idea has morphed into an actual headhunting, recruiting technique we're using right now. It is fairly successful. We are getting interviews, and we are able to send resumes out to centers. We just finished week 2 of that. And I think in total for Upper Valley, we had around 40 resumes that we sent out to area centers. What we're hearing from providers is that, the majority of these people are brand new to the field. And if you are familiar with childcare, as with other fields, that you can't have all new staffing a center. There are ratios, there are training levels, requirements. So we're trying to figure out this is a great group to discuss this, but we're trying to figure out, this is a long-term problem. We're going to have to get these new people into the field and get them trained. And we have RBC here. We have Let's Go Kids here. So we can work on some of those programs. I don't want those people who are interviewing for these jobs where they actually are not qualified to be turned away from the field. I was wondering if there's some way we could think of a holding system where we support them in taking either college level classes while they're working in another field, or if we can move them through their training process, the fast track, but without losing them to another sector. So that's one of the things that we've encountered. We have lots of applications of new people and not enough places to put them. Retention strategies. Recently, as in last night, we had our first staff committee is made up 100% of non-supervisory childcare provider staff to tackle this issue of recruitment, retention, and recognition. And they were amazing, absolutely amazing information. One thing, and this may be for your RBC and other people who are HR, one of the highlights that came up out of that meeting is that the new recruits were less able to follow the lead. And the words were follow the lead, follow the leader. That kind of nature to walk into, we had somebody who in the program had been in food service for 10 years. And so she said her first day of work, she kind of intrinsically knew to do what the low level work is. She could do the cleaning, she could do the support, the back office support. But a lot of the new hires don't have that skill. So they're coming in and they're standing in the corner and they're needing ABC 1, 2, 3 guidance. And they're so understaffed and they're so under pressure that they're not being able to meet the needs of these new hires. Lots coming out of that group. It's an excellent group to complement this team because I can go back to the actual people delivering the service and I can ask them how something would impact them. I'm very excited about that committee. Some of our recognition strategies, this group worked on a couple of particular recognition strategies. One last year that we did was a staff appreciation day. It turned into a week. That's something also maybe this group could help us with. We're typically doing it the Monday of the week of the young child, which is in usually the middle of April. That's something that maybe we could build out community-wide as a recognition strategy. Another strategy they wanted to see back was our wellness campaign we did last year. It was a wellness challenge where it was self-care. They got points for taking care of themselves. And we had a steps contest. We gave them pedometers. A lot of them have watches that track their steps to give them like physical credit for the steps they were taking. It's hard work. That's very hard work where you're not sitting still, and to feel good about all of that movement they were doing. It turns out they really liked it and they want it back. So they're going to help rejuvenate and give us input about how to do a 2.0 version of that from last year. I think that's the highlights of what we're doing for recruitment and retention for the ECEA. Any questions about that piece before we move on? We are at just about 11 o'clock. So I think
Amy, Allison has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Allison.
That's okay. It took me a minute to find where to raise my hand. I was just curious, you guys were doing that really interesting career viewer program earlier in the fall, and I'm wondering if that program got traction and how it went, and if you're going to repeat that, or if that didn't meet expectation. I'm just curious to know what happened, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah, it was with the few people that had the dedicated time to do it, it was successful. For those, I think we had 4 people complete and 1 decided not to come into the field. The issue was we could not get people through the program fast enough because they were getting hired. So we had somebody great that we were trying to schedule into programs, and she was hired retail. And she had some early childhood credit. So right now, the pace of the workforce is if somebody's looking and they're really ready, they'll take a job pretty quickly. So we actually morphed that career viewer, which for everyone was basically people could go in. We did an orientation into the field, and then they did some observations in classrooms to kind of get an understanding of what childcare without taking a job, without stepping foot first into a childcare center. From that, we morphed into career launcher. So we decided that we would support people who were already taking a job in the field. And we were able to implement our orientation with those people. Again, we kind of lost touch after the hires. They were working, they were being hired and working 45 hours a week because of the pace of what's happening right now. So we weren't able to connect as much as we were. And what we were hearing from the providers is that they just needed applications. They needed to get some individuals to look at. So we shifted our gears all to coming up with how to get them some applications. And that is that's our recruitment strategy right now, is basically headhunting. Again, we're running into this issue with having a pool of people who are underqualified, and due to the regulations, we don't have any place for them to go. And do we want to lose them? No way. This is a new problem that we need to address. Actually new, like this weekend, we discussed it, so.
Thank you.
Jill?
I'm just curious, in some of these programs that you're talking about, are they Vermont or New Hampshire?
For the ECEA, it's Vermont and New Hampshire. So Orange County, Windsor County, Sullivan, and Grafton. We go up to Haverhill in that area. We have some some centers or family providers up in Haverhill area.
Okay, great.
Anyone else before we go to some brainstorming? I wonder, since we're actually doing pretty good on time, if we can just go back over maybe, or maybe moving forward, but considering what I discussed about the recognition, I'd like to start with the recognition events, just because they're kind of something that we can possibly move on. And what I talked to you about is some of the work that we've done is we've done our Staff Appreciation Day, which again, I think we're going to morph into a week long. One of the things that was, we did yard signs, and then we also did, we encouraged directors to have an appreciation board, so, and then have like sticky notes where parents could come in and write a point of appreciation to the staff that could be on that board. That was all we could possibly manage at that time. So that's something I would like you to think about, if there's some way community-wide that we can celebrate this sector a little bit during that April week. And then the other piece is that wellness, the wellness piece, and what somebody may have experience with campaigns for wellness campaigns. And we're talking, our Staff Appreciation Day, I think we sent out about nearly 60 signs. So we had nearly 60 providers, family providers and centers participating in that. So we, budget-wise, we had to think about what we could do that was high impact, but you know, within our budget. So as far as recognition, some of you, you know, you've been employees, you know, may have ideas about being recognized. Some of you may be employers and have ideas and strategies that have worked. I would be super grateful if you had any input.
Amy, would you like us to put it in the chat or just raise your hand? How would you like us to weigh in?
Sharon, I would love to hear what you have for an idea.
Okay, so earlier in my career, I was a resource and development specialist. And so part of our work was to plan provider appreciation events. And so we used a variety of things, and some ideas might be, you know, donated certificates for, you know, dinners and things like that, that maybe the business community might be able to support. So that might be something that you could think about. We also, back in the old days when people read newspapers, we, you know, published acknowledgements and recognition of, you know, longtime employees in the newspaper, a number of years of service for a program, and the potentially the credentials that they might have earned in the previous year. And that was sort of highlighted at a dinner that we held for the community. So we brought all of the anyone who was interested came together for a provider appreciation dinner. And so that was multi-programs and throughout the county. And then, you know, they got certificates with their number of years that they had been in the field, sort of highlighting, you know, their commitment. And so that was something else that we did. So I think maybe you could do maybe a social media campaign that folks might appreciate. Instagram is pretty popular, I think, with most of early educators right now. So, so those are some of the things that I think are probably, you know, token. It's not really, I mean, what we really want to do is recognize them with, you know, wages and bonuses and, you know, all of those things. And so I do think that, you know, I hope that programs are using their ARPA funds for retention bonuses, you know, as a way to acknowledge the commitment of their staff. So maybe that's something that you could sort of check in on. So I'll give someone else a chance to weigh in.
Thanks, Sharon. That's great. Kelly?
I just had this idea like 10 seconds ago, so it's not thought out. But I was wondering if there's a way that we can connect staff appreciation to advocacy, because I think it's wonderful to have signs out on the streets and to give teachers, you know, like deals at local restaurants. And I think also a way to reach out to a broader community is to give the broader community opportunities to advocate on behalf of childcare workers. So, like information campaigns of like, we love our childcare workers. We know they need to be paid more. We know they need better working conditions. Here's how you can help advocate for better policies, and like some very concrete ways that the general public could do that. And like make it very easy for just anyone on Facebook who sees it to be like, oh yeah, I could, like in this email that we got for this call, there was, a call to action and I signed the letter immediately. Just like really easy ways to get the broader public informed and involved in advocating for better policies.
It's a great idea, Kelly. You got my mind spinning now too. I know Sarah and I talked about this last year about having signs, advocacy signs next to the staff appreciation signs. So, and the idea is that, volume of people driving by. Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else on or if you want to put it in the chat, we're recording that too. So any ideas around the appreciation or recognition, short-term recognition?
Hi, this is Rebecca. I had a quick question. I'm not as familiar as many of you are with childcare provider practices, but are there any types of loyalty incentives or recognition? So not just a day-to-day commitment, but it seems like with the regular turnover of employees, recognizing not just the employees themselves, but the centers that have strong retention and loyalty, and going back to the previous commenter's suggestion of concrete information that helps people see why that loyalty or low turnover is successful. Huh?
So you thinking within the center or community-based?
So within the center, but also, so two different things, I guess. So recognizing retention at a center, but also individual employees with loyalty and ways to recognize and reward them.
Okay. There's actually a bill in New Hampshire. I think it's Senate Bill 446 that puts aside about 9 million for that exact piece, some of that for that piece, which would be if you've been in the field X amount of years, you would get a bonus of $500. If you've been in, if you're new to the field, it would be this amount. It's not the best and not the only way to solve the problem, but it is a recognition effort. So that's something to pay attention to. If you go to, it's a New Hampshire Senate Bill 446. And I don't know where that's going to go in the next couple of months, but there's a possibility for one of those signs next to our recognition. Allison.
Yeah, I'm just curious what that staff group might have to say about all this, because one of the things that I've found having organized recognition efforts is sometimes the recognition is just burdensome. I hate to say it that way, but it's just like, I need something else. Like, I don't want to have to say thank you for this. I don't want to have to attend a lunch, or I don't want to have to do any of these things. I want, like, what recognition would be valuable to those in the field? And if it's in fact that we need to really be focused on increasing salaries, or we need to be focused on these other things, I almost hate for us to distract ourselves by putting all of the human energy and everything that is necessary to a recognition effort, when in fact we need to be doing other things. Recognition is not really solving the problem. That being said, I can see that the community-based recognition has a different value proposition than just the benefits to the staff. It also sounds like it has the value proposition of something around recruitment. And so I guess what I would really like to figure out is what are we trying to accomplish by these recognition events? And that would give me a lot more understanding of where we could be strategic about applying our energy. And I just don't know the answer to that because I don't have enough interaction with the staff to know what would be meaningful. So.
Thanks, Allison. I think that's why we're here. And I have a group that's meeting on February 6th that I can bounce those exact questions off of. And I just wrote that down to discuss.
Thank you.
Trying to capture that. Rachel?
Yeah, I really wanted to just echo what Allison was saying. At the school I worked at, in the state I was in, Teacher Appreciation Week is just kind of held at a higher regard than it is in this state, I noticed. So we had teachers reporting year after year how much we did for a Teacher Appreciation Week really was something they looked forward to. And things like asking parents to provide money towards bonuses and stuff that they knew they would get at that time was very valued. However, that was so program level. And yeah, I think in the community-based effort, when we look at things like trying to have places give discounts and whatnot, one area that we always found teachers getting sad, they would be like, go to Michael's for their discount and then realize they don't have an ID because they work in an early ed center. So while those are great, unless we were educating the community more on how early ed teachers are equally as teachers, which I think is important, some of the efforts can get a little mucky.
Exactly. I mean, even for Staples, you can sign up for a Staples Teachers Discount reward. So that is really true. Thanks, Rachel. That is really true. And I think that kind of clarified what we were talking about before, what we were talking about, what the community-wide piece might look like. And I totally get that. Although a lot of our providers, I think we're excited about the signs. What does it mean when it ends up on a business sign? You know, unexpectedly go by and like area businesses are capturing and embracing that same thing. And for that reason, you're making me think right now, do we need to separate it from Week of the Untitled? Or do we capitalize and bring them together, the awareness together, or do we pull it apart and make it just about the teachers? So well, that's another thing we can think about and ask. Let's see a couple. Jocelyn?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to third what Allison said. I think that was such an important point, but I also wanted to kind of build off of that and say, not only what do they want, but what purpose is it serving, in the sense of is it to give, I think there are different things that could be done to motivate teachers on a daily basis and to motivate teachers to stay for the longer term. So the wellness types of activities, which I thought were phenomenal, I think is sort of probably something that's going to keep a teacher for a day or two, but not necessarily going to keep a teacher for a year or two. And so probably trying to identify what are the sort of immediate motivation and long-term motivation. And then I also wanted to build off of what Kelly said earlier, or maybe it was somebody, I don't know who said this, but I think that the community, I think there's, again, sort of appreciation that actually can be raising awareness in the community for the importance of early childhood education. I think, obviously COVID has really brought that to the forefront for a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people who just don't get it and don't understand. And I think the more community members who, my in-laws, for example, for the first time a couple of weeks ago, were like, oh man, I'm so glad I don't have young kids in COVID. And I was like, it's taking you 2 years to get to this point, to finally get it. So the point being, I think that if there are ways of, publicly appreciating teachers that also help raise awareness in the community, broader community, to raise more support for early childhood educators, I think that was Kelly's point as well, was the more broader community support there is for raising wages, for attracting teachers, for all the other things that's, serve that purpose, I think the better off we'll be. So I think public appreciation should be in some ways more targeted towards raising awareness of broader community members than actually appreciating teachers.
Amy, this is Carolyn. I wondered, is there any work being done with the advocacy group around subsidizing childcare centers to be able to help with raising wages? Because I do think that at the end of the day, we've got to address the air, food, water kind of needs before we get into, not that we should ignore kind of development, career pathing, and all of the retention elements of it. But I also think that with raising wages, it becomes hard if it all gets passed on to the families that are in the communities, because they too are struggling then to be able to afford it. So there's so many compounding issues in and around childcare between access and affordability, and then the lack of staff to be able to support the centers. So is there work underway to try to address any of that, kind of separate and apart from the individual centers tackling it?
I could perhaps speak to that real quickly. I'm sort of one of the opening co-facilitators for the advocacy committee, which will have its first meeting tomorrow. And yes, what you're identifying is one of the core components of the crisis, which is the misfit between the costs and the sources of funding for early care and education. And it's a totally non-feasible, non-sustainable system as it's designed in this country right now. And you're naming that in what you're saying. So yes, that's part of what Let's Grow Kids has been working on. That's part of what New Futures has been working on. I think it's what the businesses are beginning to recognize here in the Upper Valley, which is great. So yes, that'll be part of it. And Amy, you got more hands up still.
There is work being done. If you maybe, where are you, Sharon? Can you put the Let's Grow Kids information in the chat? There's a lot. It takes time to do that. It is a huge undertaking. And in Vermont, they do have a plan. They are past their first step of their plan, and you can read more about that on the Let's Grow Kids website. That is their main charge right now, is looking at wages. And in New Hampshire is less of a coherent, cohesive, attack on it. There's ARPA money. There's not enough ARPA money to sustain higher wages. Looking at the field, it is depending on the program model, it is an entry level competitive wage for a lot of centers. If you come in and you have absolutely no experience and no training, it's as you gain experience and training, you get farther and farther and farther from the real wage. But I'm trying to think what I wanted to say about that. The work being done by Let's Grow Kids is probably the best thing to start talking about and getting and letting parents know about, especially if they're Vermont people. And then in New Hampshire, hopefully we can look at some of, it's going to take us a little bit longer. The program facilities, or the facilities and program models, is also looking at some ways to lower costs in programs so that they could possibly use some of that, some of the savings to increase wages. So there's another kind of maybe short-term help right there. I think Faith was next.
Yes. So I used to work in a daycare many moons ago, and every year we would have recognition for the staff, and we had it was a big, I would say like a block party. So we would, the parents, because it was more of a for-profit, the parents basically paid for this, but we would have almost like a block party. They would have rides sometimes come in, ponies, things, different things, food, all that. But the staff really enjoyed that, having that extra type of thing. But why not include, like, do a block party where businesses get involved and then the community gets involved. There'd be people coming, a lot of times, people that work in the field have children, so they would want to bring down their children to get, to go on the pony ride or play the games and things. Then we could have people down there recruiting, saying, this is what we offer here. This is some type of, is this something you would like to do in the field? But it's all about that relationship piece of it and coming together and seeing what's there. And, more, like you said, more and more businesses are realizing that there is a great need out there and they should be part of this. And of course, during COVID, it would need to be, during the summer months or whatever. But a lot of the block parties that I've been to in this community have really worked for a lot of the folks that are in need of daycare. I mean, they go there, they meet with other parents and things like that. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Thanks, Faith. I think we have a little bit of lead time to get up to something that we could do possibly in April. And I definitely think, listening to the people around this table, that it would be as much of a learning opportunity, an awareness opportunity, an advocacy opportunity as it would be for recognition. Great ideas. Kim, you've had your hand up.
So one of the things that kind of comes to mind when I'm thinking about different ways that people can appreciate the teachers working in the childcare centers is maybe a little bit more beyond the realms of just kind of highlighting them through the newspaper or, having a little party. But is there any feasible way that you guys could perhaps reward some of the loyal employees with maybe like a gifted day off? I know you guys are like super overworked and you're short staffed, but I think that could be really helpful in preventing some burnout and help with retention. Is there any possible way you can do that? I do want to kind of touch a little bit back on advocacy. Sometimes, yes, there are funds, but the advocacy just can't stop there. Once you've secured funds with advocacy, there still is a need for advocating to use those funds too. We see that a lot in policy. So sometimes you might get the ARPA funds, but you have to advocate also to actually implement and use those funds. We see that a lot in policy where we get the money, but and then it's not used, which can be really devastating if you've been following legislation and doing a lot of advocacy. It can really be a devastating loss. So I just want to emphasize there that when you get the money, the advocacy can't stop there. There is one thing that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention that we've been monitoring. I know Amy stays very up to date with legislation that happens. I can only speak to New Hampshire. There is a bill coming out. It's Senate Bill 288. I know one of the major concerns that the childcare community has been experiencing is the concerns with COVID. And this particular bill would prohibit requiring immunization for COVID. COVID vaccinations for any child enrolled in a childcare setting or school. We do believe that this can set a very dangerous precedent in the future, kind of moving forward with not only COVID vaccines, but other vaccinations in the future, which is very concerning. If you have, smallpox, chickenpox, can be very detrimental. I'll share the bill text there if anyone is interested, but these are just some thoughts I have.
Thank you, Kim. Andra, would you like to? She popped in a little bit late and left her intro in the chat.
I'm so sorry that I was so late. I was just wanted to follow up on what Kim just suggested in that one of the year's Children's Integrated Services annual conference, we really wanted to focus on self-care and self-care going beyond just like some Dove chocolate. And so we solicited local businesses to donate services and goods for the home visitors that are part of CIS services. And I wonder if we can maybe have some kind of relationship in that way where it's even more ongoing than just like a gift certificate or something. If you can, I mean, there's lots of folks who are, are private life coaches or yoga coaches or, provide that kind of like supportive care where it's like whole person care or like nutrition counseling, things like that, and maybe like reduced cost services to ECE professionals for that, so that it's beyond just like, okay, like, get yourself centered for, to get ready for tomorrow, where it's like a deeper sort of self-care. And that would be another way to involve local businesses and honestly promote like the great work that people are doing in other sectors too. So.
You know, it made me think in the wellness challenge that we did last year for the ECEA, and something that Andrew, you weren't here at the beginning, but the ECEA now has a staff focus group or staff committee on retention and recruitment and recognition. So we can bounce ideas off of them and we can get a sense of what it means to them. And what they really liked is because they got points. The points didn't lead to a whole lot, but they were very competitive and they like being competitive. But the points were for, it could be anything. We had a non-active, a passive passion that they have. They got points for doing it. So painting, if they did yoga, if they went for a walk, if they took a bath, like it, as long as it was something that they do personally to recharge. Read a book. They got points for reading a book, a non-work book for not for work. And then they got points for more active, because we had somebody that said that they do karate. And they love doing karate, but they don't take enough time to do it. So they kind of that challenge gave them permission to go out and do more of that. And it was something that they found that recharges their battery. And it kind of helped them, from the people from this focus group said that it helped them identify the things and value the things, even the little things like reading a book. And putting on a pair of slippers and snuggling up with a good book meant to them that they had kind of lost. And this was last year when we thought COVID would be over. So we may be looking at a different challenge this year, but I think that they're more aware, like they were talking about measuring a mile in their parking lot and playground, because they want to calculate what they walk in a day. So they said last year we had asked them to measure a mile. Most of them didn't, but they took the kids for more walks because they got points for the steps. So they were outdoors more with their kids and racking up those steps, and it was better for the kids too. So it actually gave them some strange motivation, even though their points got them, nothing. They got a trophy if they got the most points of the most steps. And we made this awesome video when we calculated the steps of everybody combined went from Lebanon to the tip of Argentina. If somebody had walked, so we calculated how many steps it would take to get there. So we celebrated all of their collective work they had done. And it would have been nice to kind of beef that whole program up a little bit. So we'll have to look at that a little bit more.
I mean, like that speaks to the power of just putting attention and value on things that we keep saying we value. It really does. Like, people are motivated to do it. They know what to reach for. It's just like, if it doesn't feel like you're taking away from someone else by taking care of yourself and your family and your loved ones or whatever, like, then it's okay. Then you have not only courage to do it. And it reminds me of the Orange County Parent Child Center got a grant from I think it was through the Department of Health to start a garden space for staff, just for staff. And it was a huge deal. Like we moved it to a new location. We like really invested in it, and the staff, it was a huge benefit. But it was like, we put a little bit of competition in there of like, what are you going to grow and how often are you out there? And we put a value on it, and it completely changed the relationship. So
kind of all goes back to, I can't remember who, maybe it's Allison talked about what is the purpose? What is the purpose of that recognition? So we definitely need to keep that in mind, and we are running out of time, and I want to make sure we have time to set the next meeting. So let's finish up with Kelly.
Yeah, kind of going off what Andrew was just saying, and also looking into how we can provide more consistent emotional support for childcare workers, especially workers who are working with one or several children who have come from traumatic backgrounds. That can be super overwhelming, draining, and leads to a lot of burnout. So if we could look into, I don't know, recruiting mentors or recruiting life coaches or something to kind of set up some kind of support system for the childcare providers to have a place or a way to kind of like vent their frustrations in a way that can actually be helpful and rejuvenating, and not just like constant frustration and overwhelm.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Kelly. We are out of time and I want to make sure that we look at meeting times. Is probably a doodle poll the best way to do this with all of these people? I am going to include some evening and some weekend and, you know, for our providers, we'll try some lunchtime, possibly early morning options and see what we come up with. And I hope that as many of you as possible are able to attend. If not, we are still here. We have the minutes, you can interact with the minutes, you can always, I can meet with you, I can give you a summary, or if you wanted to, if you read the minutes and you have reactions, go ahead and send them back. We can bring them up at the next meeting, and hopefully we can move some short and long-term things along. And I think that's about it. If you have anything else, you will leave the chat open a little bit longer. If you want to share any other resources, we will make sure that they're in the minutes. Go ahead and put them in there, or any other questions or concerns or ideas, that would be great. And I will let you all maybe have a 5-minute break for lunch before you go to your next event. Thank you for coming, everybody. Take care. Bye.